Women on a Green Mission. Follow along as two friends document their unfurling permaculture journeys.
Join our chats each week where we'll be sharing how we and others apply permaculture to our gardens and daily life.
We're no experts. We're at the start of our journey, fumbling our way to a greener life. We'd love your company along the way. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. What's happening? What's doing?
What's happening? We've actually had a wintry couple of days in the Northern Rivers. Got my first taste of winter up here.
Okay, so when you say winter, can you just explain what it looks like?
It was overcast. The sun was not shining. No, it was actually a little bit fresh. Like we've had some really cold, snappy kind of days. And it was good timing because I actually reserved a few books from the library. So I got Retro Suburbia, which I've already read, but I wanted a refresher. I got Grown and Gathered, which I own that book, but it's in storage. And then Permaculture's Guide to Vegetable Gardening and like a permaculture handbook that someone wrote. I have to have a look. I can't remember what it's called. And I picked them all up. And then that kind of week, we had some like cooler days where we wanted the aircon on and Oscar was away working. So I've actually been doing lots of research and planning. So I've kind of used the books, got some ideas from that. I jumped on the diggers and the seed collection to see, what to plant when and looked at their guides. And so, yeah, I've just kind of been sitting down and figuring out what else I want to be planting and specifically varieties. So we've got 2 avocados. One, I don't know what it is. So, and the other one's a Hass, which is a type A. So I was looking for another type B avocado to plant. And I was just looking at stone fruits that are more suited to subtropical areas, like low chill apricots, low chill cherries, things like that, just to try and get varieties that will thrive more, I guess, in this climate that Yeah, and then also just kind of, I was noting down, like I was looking at raspberry canes, but then when they fruited, because the diggers give you that information, so I was like, okay, if I get this one and this one, then I'll get 4 months of raspberries instead of just 2, because they're kind of, one after the other. So I've kind of just been doing that kind of planning the last week and just, figuring out, same with my apple varieties, like what varieties can I get that might fruit different times of the year, or to prolong my growing season a little bit more.
Brilliant.
So I've kind of been sinking my teeth into that. And then also just picking 2 or 3 projects that we want to do over winter to kind of start getting the resources. So I told Oscar for my birthday present, so my birthday's in September, I wanted to have a walk-in netted tunnel. That's my birthday present. And I've already bought the netting. So he's just got to get all the other stuff and he's going to make it up for me for my birthday. So I'd love that to get done, late winter, early spring as an early birthday present so that I can start putting stuff in there for the spring season.
And will this be something that will stop your pesky possums as well?
Yeah. So we're using Brett's kind of model. If you go into Limestone Permaculture's website, he's got some farm structures and some good, actually tells you like how much of everything and diagrams, like little tutorials, I guess you'd call them, PDFs. So we're going to use his one because I really like his key design, and he's used the netting that's the same width, so I know that it'll kind of reach and there's no wastage. And so, I really want to get a netted tunnel in, and then on the outside of that netted tunnel, that's where all of those apples and pears and espaliered fruit will kind of go. And because we've got those things already from Mum's place here sitting, waiting, they're dormant now, so it's great, but it would be good to get them in the ground, for spring to let them kind of jump into action. So,
absolutely.
That's my main project, but I'd also like to also just get another bed organised, and I've found someone on Marketplace that's got some big water tanks, so I'm trying to get that organised to get here so we can have some pumpkin and watermelon and rockmelon and melon patches where they can just kind of scramble and go wild, but still raised up a little bit. That's been my thing, and I've been also looking at a greenhouse. That's the other project, so that I can jumpstart stuff into spring in late winter. So yeah, just I used Grown and Gathered, that book by Matt and Lentil. I love them. Their growing guide. So they break it into seasons and like late winter, what to start prepping for. And so I was kind of just writing a list of my seeds and looking at what seeds I have and what varieties might grow well vegetable wise here, and just thinking about what I might buy for spring, even though it's not even halfway through winter.
No, but it's now's
looking ahead.
Now's the time though, isn't it? Like we don't, and I'm guilty of this in the past where it's like, okay, now we're in spring. Oh, hang on, now I need to prepare. And I'm like, no, like I should have well and truly prepared beforehand to get a jump on it.
Nice.
So
it was such a nice pause. And I actually sat down and I thought back, okay, what were the things in April that really stood out to me? What did I notice? What were my observations? Because I was saying the last couple episodes how bad I am at writing things down. And because it was kind of yucky weather, I didn't really want to be outside, and the kids were just so calm. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to take this week to just write down some of my observations. So I did April and June's observations from memory, kind of did a bit of a walk around to refresh my memory, like what did really badly, just my general thoughts about things, about, the sun when solstice came. And so, yeah, I really kind of relished that time, had a cup of tea and sat down and just kind of indulged in that reflection and jotting down observations and a little bit of planning, because I feel like my planning will be better. I'm always that person who jumps into action straight away, and I'll just kind of buy things on an impulse. So if I've got a bit of a plan, when I have the money, when I am ready for spring, I can refer back to it. And I go, oh, that's the apple I need to buy. I'm not just going to buy some random apple, or that's the avocado that I'm looking for, and not kind of waste money or my effort, I guess, just buying random stuff like I normally do.
So it's that, you're changing, you're responding to your situation, and you're accepting, what is it? You're applying self-regulation and accepting feedback.
That's it.
Go figure.
How permaculture of me.
I know, right?
What about you? What have you been up to?
I've started venturing into making a ginger bug. So I haven't done that before. I don't know why I haven't done it before. I just haven't. I've made kombucha before and, lots of different ferments, but I haven't done a ginger bug. So I'm on day 4 of making my little ginger bug. So I'll be able to have some really good gut healthy fermented drinks, hopefully in the next few weeks.
Is there a particular recipe you're following?
It's very complicated. It's incredibly complicated. It's a cup of water. It's a tablespoon of ginger and it's a tablespoon of sugar, white sugar. You mix it up and you basically keep adding you start off with 2. So 2 tablespoons of ginger, 2 tablespoons of sugar in a cup of water.
Yeah.
And then each day you add 1 of each. So, 1 of sugar, 1 of ginger, and just either grate it or like your ginger offcuts. You can use pretty much any part of the ginger, so it doesn't have to be peeled or anything like that. And I either grate it or just chop it up in there, mix it all up. And then you just let the good natural yeasts and the bacteria and everything do their job in the fermentation stage. So depending on, obviously, the temperature, the type of water you're using, whether your ginger's, from your garden it's organic or maybe it's been treated. I've had to, unfortunately, we didn't have any growing here and I couldn't get to the markets to get organic, and the local supermarket didn't have organic. So I've ended up with just whatever they've had. But it started to, I noticed I'm on day 4 today, day 5. I probably should have written it down when I started it. That's one of those things. I need to write it down. I'm just observing, and when it looks like it's about right is when it's about right. Like I'm not going to, get too hung up on days or anything because there's so many variables. So, and now I need to learn a little bit more about, okay, once I've got my ginger bug, what do I do with it? Like, how do I then make it into drink? So I've been, watching a few YouTube videos and things like that. Sourdough, I treated, I bought myself an early birthday present. My birthday's in August, so it's a little bit early. But it's the book by Elaine Bodie. I can't remember the name of the book. Hang on, let me have a look on my list. No. I can't remember it. I didn't write it down on my book list.
Wait, let's Google it quickly.
Okay. So I've been trying, lots of different sourdough recipes and methods. So it's not just about the recipe or the method, it's both. And some people get really hung up on it's got to have so much hydration, or it's got to have, so many folds, or no, don't fold it, you can knead it. And so I was having quite a bit of success with a few different recipes, but I could never really get an amazing rise. And I'd make really nice. What is it?
Sourdough Whisperer?
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. So that's on its way to me. I'm really excited.
Cool.
I used her master recipe, which is on the foodbodsourdough.com website. And I used her method, and I love it because she's a little bit like us in the fact that, you know what, it doesn't have to be perfect. Near enough's good enough, and do what works for you. Don't get hung up on what all the professionals say if you can't do it this way, or it's not really sourdough if you don't do this or that. And I followed her method, and I had the best loaf ever. It was absolutely amazing. So I was like, right, I need a book. I want to learn how to make sourdough everything. And she just challenges the norm on every aspect of baking with sourdough. So I love that. Yeah, so I'm keen to get that. And what else has been happening? Nettles. We're getting more and more nettles popping up. And I used to really, I'm a weedy in the fact that I love weeds because, they are pioneer plants in the garden. They are there for diversity. They are there for a reason. They are supporting so much life in the garden. But nettles are one of those things that when you reach down to, pull something out and you don't realise they're there, they bite back. However, over the course of, learning a lot more about lots of different things, I've learnt the value of nettles, and they're absolutely an amazing resource. They are so nutrient dense. They're full of vitamin C, magnesium, like 1,000 different things. So
do they taste good though?
Oh, they're amazing. It's so funny. The first batch I picked, I did my research, so either drying them or heating them will take the sting out of the nettle. So you either want to have them dry or heated. And so I dried a whole heap for tea, and I had all of these nettle left over, and I went, what am I going to do with it? And I thought, I'm just going to put it through like a pasta dish similar to I would, like a baby spinach. And my son Mitch was going, I'm not sure, Mum. I'm not sure if nettle's really the thing I want to eat. And I'm like, just trust me on this. It's going to be great. Thinking, I have no idea if it's going to be great. It was so tasty that he was going back to the pan. All of us were actually going back to the pan of full cooked pasta with sauce and the nettles, and just pulling out the nettles and just eating them. They're really tasty.
What does it taste like?
It's like
Does it taste like a green?
Yeah, it does taste like a green, but it's like a sweet green. It's like a sweet spinach. Yeah, it's really pleasant. It's really nice. Wow. So the nettle tea, nettle by itself is a bit but I put it with, mint or my favourite lemon verbena. So I've either had that dry or just come and, pick it fresh and pop it in a cup. And I'm really uncouth when it comes to tea. I don't even do a proper teapot or anything. I literally just bang it in, it goes in a cup, and I just strain it through my teeth basically. But it's just so good. It's such a good health tonic. So
nice.
Yeah, so we've got more popping up in the turkey coop. I saw that the other day, and I'm like, right, I'll be out there. I've got to harvest that, and I've got a bit more popping up near the shed. So I'm like, right, I'm going to harvest that. Yeah, so I'm excited by nettle now as opposed to deterred.
Well, that's a good segue into our guest this week.
It is, isn't it? Who have we got?
Yes. So we're talking to, well, it's not us actually, it's just me talking to Elle this week. I'm talking to her about her business, the Australian Medicinal Herbs. So I met Elle when I first moved to the area, and we just kind of connected on a gardening Facebook page, I think. And yeah, she's got a really interesting story. She was a cop and then kind of discovered permaculture, and she's a single mum and launched her business. And yeah, so a trigger warning, she does talk about her story, which involves PTSD, and she talks about some pretty heavy stuff that she went through with the police force. And she does mention abortion as well, not her own, but as part of her story, she met someone. So just a little trigger warning for that if you are listening, or if you want to maybe skip this episode. But yeah, super, super interesting lady. And she's given us a discount code for our listeners to use. So I'll pop the discount code and how you access it all in the show notes. So you can get 5% off her range, and she delivers Australia-wide. So yeah, really, really cool.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to listening along with everyone else on this episode. Thank you so much for interviewing Elle. And I know that you girls had an amazing time going through the interview process and having a good talk.
Yeah. All right. Enjoy, everyone.
Hey, welcome to another episode. This week is just me, and I'll be recording with Elle. So Elle lives down the road from me, and I've popped down to her place to have a chat to her. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This week we'll be talking to her about her business, and how she got into permaculture, and yeah, just a little bit about Elle's life. So firstly, where are we recording today?
We're in Yagle country.
We're in Yagle country here. And yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Elle. I'm a mum of 2 teenage daughters. I own and have founded Australian Medicinal Herbs, which is it's a medicinal herb farm based in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales. I've got a very small permaculture farm here. I also work with other local small farmers to produce life-changing medicinal herbs.
Mm-hmm. And you're kind of talking yourself down. You've won awards and you have an amazing property.
Thank you.
So tell us about that. And did you get entered or did you?
No.
Like, how does that work?
Okay, so I was nominated for an award from the Australian Institute of Horticulture.
Yeah.
And I won that award last year.
Yeah.
And that was for my dedication in growing medicinal herbs in Australia, which was
so cool.
Pretty amazing. Costa Georgiadis gave me the award at this award ceremony in Cairns. It was so cool. And I'm like such a fangirl for Costa. I was like, oh my God.
The photos on your Instagram, isn't it?
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, he's like my favorite person of all time.
Cool.
And then I also won an award for the hibiscus tea, which was a silver award for it's the a herbal wellness tea. Yeah, it was really beautiful. Yeah.
But we were having a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying how most of them actually import their tea, but you grow it all locally here, either on your property or, like you said, on close farms nearby.
Yeah, I do predominantly grow it here on my farm.
Yeah.
I did have like a little system of growers, but this year has been especially hard. I've only got one grower who's still hanging in there at the moment. The weather's been not ideal.
No. Praying for no more rain.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have some nice dry winters.
Yeah.
So trying to make local food systems and local medicine systems. When I did my permaculture course, I learned about the concept of our society is only 3 days deep.
Yes.
And you think about, as soon as the supermarkets run out of food, our society collapses, and it only takes 3 days. So I also thought about that with regards to medicine as well. Like, what happens when the chemists are out of?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
we all turn on each other.
We have to get it. If I can supply it locally and organically to people of Australia, that's my jam. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. So rewind. What were you doing before you were doing this?
Okay, a little bit of a turn of events.
Just slightly.
I was a cop. So for 17 years, I was a police officer. Worked in southwestern Sydney, and then I eventually finished up my service at Grafton, which is how I ended up here.
Yeah.
And in 2018, I just had a really, really bad sort of month. And then that bad month turned into a really, really bad week. And in the space of that week, I had a crushed baby, a double fatality in a car accident. And my, sort of the final straw was on Christmas night, there was a shooting. And inside, I just kind of went, and I broke, and I just developed really, really bad PTSD, and I couldn't go back to work.
Yeah. So you ended up leaving because it obviously wasn't for you at that stage of your life anymore. And
after 17 years, I think something inside just went, I'm done tapping out.
Especially when you have little kids.
Yeah.
Your kids were young at the time.
So, and the way that I actually knew that I had to leave is because one day, after this shooting and all these horrible, horrible things, I started you sort of like close off all your emotions.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, I started crying and I just couldn't stop crying. And my daughter walked in and I was in a cupboard crying, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can't go back to work now. So yeah,
Wow.
that was how I knew I had to stop.
Yeah. And so what kind of was the next step then for you along that path?
So I was pretty sort of, I had really bad PTSD, so I couldn't leave my house for about a year.
Wow.
And I was like really broken and despondent, and I'm
That
like,
must have been so hard.
I'm like, who am I without this job? Like I've been a cop since I was a kid, basically, like, you know, a very young adult.
Your identity.
My whole identity in my world was wrapped up in being a cop. All my friends are cops, like all that sort of thing. And then I had to figure out who I was without this persona I'd built for myself. So I went and did some work with psychologists, and I'd had to sort of regulate my central nervous system because I had adrenal fatigue from like going up and down and up and down on all those really fun and exciting jobs that you'd go to, and obviously horrific jobs as well. I just had to sort of regulate my central nervous system. So then I started going out to nature and like going on walks on the beach and going to the forest and forest bathing and doing and the immense like amazing change that it makes in your body, not having the ups and downs and all of that sort of thing. Like it was very helpful.
I mean, not to the same degree, but that's kind of like why we left caravanning, because I was just sick of like the go. I think it's different. Like you would have had these massive highs and lows, but just being on, like switched on all the time, like our bodies aren't made to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
You just crash, and it's not healthy at all the way that our modern world's kind of set up for us, or is, you know, pushing us to be. So yeah, it's a big hard thing to go through. And then from there you kind of started doing, you were telling me you know, you wanted to pursue things that made you happy or that you enjoyed, and that's kind of how you got into plants and that kind of journey.
So first I got into permaculture. So I was an avid gardener, and I wanted to go and learn how to garden properly. So I signed up for a permaculture course, thinking that I was going to learn how to garden.
As you do.
I'm like, oh, so I'll learn how to like do all these things. And it was pretty amazing because it was like a 2-week intensive sort of permaculture course at the Krishna village at Yangela. And it was with Fionn and Laura Quinlan, and they had this amazing like yin and yang. Like he was really intense and she was like so beautiful and motherly and nurturing. And all of the things that we learned, it was just the most mind-blowing, completely like life-changing experience. And it really did open my eyes to just sort of getting back to nature and us being a part of nature, and how instead of like catastrophizing our future and being like, oh no, what are we going to do? Like we can do small, simple, slow things to, you know, make our lives better and live intentionally.
And you lived on site for the 2 weeks too. That would have been really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Like all of the other students, we sort of made friends and interacted with them, and it was a really holistic experience as well. Yeah.
Amazing. And then from there, what kind of led you to the herbal path? Because you're not a herbalist by training.
No, I started a Western herbal medicine degree and did a year and realised I don't really want to treat people in the room. And and I'm definitely more of a plant person. So what took me down the world of herbs is after doing the permaculture course, I decided I wanted to like continue to follow those passions, and I went and started learning about horticulture. And I did a Cert 2 in production nursery, and then I did the Cert 3 in production horticulture, and then eventually the Cert 4 in production horticulture, which is, it's all sort of organic production horticulture as well. Cool. Like, learning how to grow organically and produce organically. And from there, I was with another student one day, and she came up and just asked me a question which completely changed my life as well. Like, you know, all these like little baby tipping point moments, which is so interesting. She came up and she told me, she asked me if I had a particular herb because she needed to have an abortion. And I was like, pardon? Huh? What? I had no idea that plants could be used like that. And it really sort of piqued my interest. And I thought about, well, plants are medicine, and I've never thought about that before. I know that plants are food, and I know that plants are pretty, but I've never thought about plants as being medicine. It was like a little light bulb had gone off in my mind, and I just got all of the books that I could and started researching and learning. And yeah, that sort of, because of my condition, obviously with PTSD, I was like, oh, I wonder if there's anything for me that I could like see. So I started I tried to find some really nice, beautiful herbs nearby. So I went into a store in Byron Bay, and I was looking at the packets going, oh, like,
they're from China and India.
They're from China, and they're from like Syria and Bolivia. And I'm like, huh. And I went up and I said, is there anything from like organically Australian produce here? And she's like, no, we don't. I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
And it's Byron, like you're not in some, little town, like
and the Northern
very
Rivers.
Open-minded, very into that scene. Up there,
the Northern Rivers like produces a huge amount of of food for the whole country. So you would think if you're going to find local organic,
it'd be here.
It would be here, but I couldn't find any. So I started growing them myself.
Very cool.
Yeah,
and that kind of timed with COVID a little bit.
Yes. So my mum had, so she's got this like horrible, yucky cough.
Yeah.
And one day, because thankfully I was obsessed with medicinal herbs and like doing all the research. And one day I was driving along minding my own business, and I saw this plant on the side of the road near a river, and I was like, oh my God, that's a mullein plant. And I'm like such a nerd. I jumped out of the car, ran over, like jumping the fence. Diving, rolling anyway. I harvested some of the leaves, and then I took them to my mum's house, and I'm like, try this, just try it. And thankfully, like, she had enough trust in me that she was like, all right, she's not trying to poison me. So yeah, she tried them, and then she's immediately it had fixed her cough, and she's like, this is amazing. So I went down and harvested some more leaves, and she continued using them. And it was around the time of COVID, so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I got some, and I started growing the plants and harvesting the plants as well as wildcrafting, because there was a whole bunch of near where my mum lived, and I started selling them on. Well, first I started like giving them to my friends and family and those sorts of things. And everyone's giving me amazing feedback saying how useful it was. And then I started selling on a Facebook marketplace, and then more and more people are contacting me about different herbs as well, like predominantly the respiratory herb, which was fantastic, but other herbs as well. And then my 14-year-old, she like did up a little website for me.
So cool.
And then all of a sudden, my business happened. I was born.
Because it is like a family business. Like the girls helped you with harvesting and growing. And
they still do. We often wildcraft the mullein. We do little relationships with the farmers up near Gyra, so I'll give them a bottle of wine, and then I go and harvest from their lands. And it's like a really nice, beautiful little relationship, because they don't want those weeds. They see them as weeds, and I'm like, that's so valuable. Like, they're so useful for the human body.
Did you find doing the courses, like all of the courses you've done, has just opened up the way you see the world? Like, normally you drive past and go, that's a weed, that's a this, and now you're like, oh, everything has potential, and seeing things.
See, like, everything has a use in it, and like, it's all here for a reason. It's like the farmers' friends that are all of the weeds are in that place for a reason.
Whether that's like their tap roots to break the soil up, or it's lacking in a certain nutrient that weed provides.
It mines it, and dandelions, for example. Like, I love dandelions.
It's
like,
so cool. So what herbs do you currently have on offer for people to utilize?
Okay, obviously the mullein, which is the respiratory herb, which is just amazing. It's an expectorant, so it gets the mucus out of your airways, so upper and lower respiratory tract, as well as it's like demulcent as well, so it helps to soothe your lungs as well. It's really, really interesting. I've also got lemon balm, which is, so I started using lemon balm with my PTSD because it's a nervine, so it helps with this to regulate the central nervous system, and it's also fantastic for anxiety and things such as like concentration and cognition, those sorts of things. And it's also antiviral, which is, so I think of lemon balm as the sort of herb that if you've got a young family, you definitely want a lemon balm plant, just because it has so many useful things and capabilities. Like, it's antiviral, it's great for like coughs and colds, and stopping like the before you get sick. You want it before you get sick, and it'll help.
Yeah. Joe and I had that conversation actually, because I think she comes from a similar background to you, where like she never had herbal medicine growing up. Like she wasn't really aware of that so much. Her family were very much like, you're sick, you feel pain, here's Panadol or paracetamol. But I grew up with a chiropractor as a dad. So, you know, we had a herbalist that we lived at the back of my dad's practice, and at the front was his practice, his rooms, and the herbalist was there full time, and like a massage therapist who did like, you know, Reiki. And so it's just so normal for me. And I think sometimes I forget that like it's a big scary thing to do something like that and to take that next leap, especially when I meet other people who are just like, why would you do that? Or like, that doesn't make sense. Like there's a pharmacy, like it's proven, there's science behind it. Why would you go and take this herb? Like I think there's a big mindset barrier for a lot of people. Like I know your experience was positive and it was like a penny drop and you were like, wow, these plants can do all this for me. But, you know, I wonder if you hadn't had that permaculture introduction beforehand, whether someone said, I want to take this herb to do this thing, you'd be like, what? Like, you're kidding me. Like, what do you think's going to happen? Like, you're going to poison yourself or, you know, I think.
I actually did think that initially. I was
really?
like,
there you go, see? Even with the permaculture background.
Like, it takes a lot to expand the mind. Like, and there's a lot of unlearning.
Totally.
It's like you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And I think that's like the joys of permaculture and like it's ever expanding knowledge and learning. It's like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah. I've been doing a bit of a deep dive into some of the principles because we're doing mini episodes on them. And the observation one, when I was researching about that, there was a big paragraph in this text I was reading about just that, like unlearning, and your brain's programmed for such a young age. Like if you're already out there in the world to think a certain way, or if you're told a fact, to just assume that that's correct or that's how everybody sees that thing. And you forget sometimes that not everybody has the same perspective as you, or you just assume that it's common knowledge, or you assume that's how it's meant to be without kind of seeing other people's perspectives. I think it's a massive thing in, you know, people, Westerners in Australia, accepting Indigenous knowledge, you know, like this is what we've been taught, this is how we know it is to be. And then the more we learn about those cultures, we go, oh, actually, that's not what I thought it was. And they actually know all this stuff, or, you know, those kind of misconceptions that happen because you think, you know, or you assume that because you've been told that by somebody that it's the truth or the way to do something. And it can be really hard to unlearn and really hard to kind of deprogram yourself into what you've been taught, especially if it's a family thing, like a cultural family thing, that's how you're brought up. It can be hard to go against the grain and think differently, especially to voice it as well. Like it's one thing to think it and then to actually live it, and people then feel like you're being judged or being seen a certain way. Like I definitely feel like when I talk about herbs or growing things, people go, oh my God, she's such a hippie. You know what I mean? Like that, those labels that kind of then make people cautious, I guess, to live the way they want to live or to voice what they want to voice because they don't want to be seen a certain way.
Or alternate. Yeah. Very different from the mainstream. Totally. I think with herbal medicine, for example, so when I went to Germany, if you walk into one of their apothecaries or pharmacies, their pharmacies are completely full of herbal medicine, and it's just so different, like the cultural differences over in, say, Germany or Europe compared to here. And it's really interesting that we have been, as Australians, socialised a certain way that, like the whole Panadol thing, like if you're sick, you go get Panadol, as opposed to if you're in Germany, you would mostly go out to your backyard and get a herb. But if you didn't have access to that one, you would just go to their pharmacies, which are full of herbs. And it's like so different. It's really interesting.
Or even a step backwards and like have a glass of water first. Do you know what I mean? Something so basic, and that concept of preventative medicine. Because I think there is a place for Western medicine. But for me, it's like a crisis care. Like you go when it's a last resort more than anything else for me. Like I would prefer to prevent the thing from happening with natural things, whether it be, you know, herbs or food or being outside or whatever the thing is. And then, you know, if it's getting to the point where I can't do that, so like my thyroid, for instance, I will take the medication if I need it, But if there's a different way to do it, I'd rather explore that first.
And especially natural options. Like,
yeah.
we need to like work with nature to support ourselves as opposed to against it.
Totally. Like I said, like your upbringing, for instance, it's such a, I don't know if it's a Croatian thing or like a Western European, like Eastern European thing that, you know, you have chamomile tea. Herbal teas aren't just herbal teas. Like I think they're marketed now for taste, like the T2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all taste related and they're full of sugar a lot of the time. And you actually taste what a normal tea, not normal, like a natural tea tastes like. And someone's like, oh, it's bitter, because you're just so programmed into tasting these sweetened herbal teas that aren't really therapeutic necessarily.
Okay. I don't buy T2 teas because like obviously I got my herb farm, but that's not ideal.
So I think giving things a go as well, or maybe putting some honey in it and doing things like that to kind of ease yourself into changing your palate, I guess, because for some people it wouldn't be pleasant, I guess, if you're used to having sugary things or commercial like herbal teas.
Things like the twinings, some of them are naturally they're sweetened with hibiscus flower. So hibiscus is like, it's full of natural sugars, just the actual calyx. So I know, and I've seen licorice in quite a few of them as well. So licorice is a herb that isn't like naturally gives a bit of sweetness as well.
So it's good to know. So there's some natural ways you can sweeten
I think like alternate brand, like the twinings, for example, those like different raspberry, those sorts of ones, they're sweet with those additional sort of hibiscus and licorice and those other herbs.
Is there a big difference though in quality in something like that you buy off the shelf versus your products, for instance?
So mine are obviously grown in Australia and they're organic with like regenerative farming practices, and they're freshly sort of made and stored and posted out. So that would be probably the quality, and the medicinal quality of them would be obviously significant better than Amazon. Amazon? Or something like that. And I think it tastes better as well. Like you can feel the difference and taste the difference.
So we did mullein and we've done lemon balm. What else is in your range?
Hibiscus, obviously.
Hibiscus. Plug in the hibiscus. It tastes beautiful.
I love hibiscus.
And what's this good for?
It's good for so many things. So I think of it as like a natural, if you drink alcohol, it's a natural hangover cure.
I need this. I said to Elle when I saw her last time, I was like, my doctor said I've got high whatever levels in my liver. Like it's too high. It's like, you need to just, maybe have some more alcohol-free nights. Maybe hibiscus tea.
Well, because it's a natural liver cleanser, so it helps to flush your body out. So, natural liver cleanser. It's like the fruit calyx is full of vitamin C, and the leaves are full of iron. So it's really supportive for women.
So low in iron. That's probably good for me.
And I just sort of think if you're having it as a hangover cure, it's sort of like kind of is like a natural barocker. It helps to like give you a bit of pep in your step and go the next day.
Can you have too much of it, or does your body just kind of stop absorbing it if you?
No, you can have too much. So that's obviously on the labels I say like just have one a day. So because it also lowers blood pressure. So if you have too much of it, it will lower your blood pressure too much, and then that's not ideal.
So all of them have different kind of things that you'd have to be a little bit aware of.
So it's really important when using medicinal herbs that you do a bit of research about them, which is often why I'm so interested by these companies that do blends, because you've got several different herbs blended together, and whilst tiny amounts can't be that bad, you really do need to know what's in your herbs, and if they contraindicate with any like medications that you take, any sort of issues that you have, like you've got thyroid issues. I've got really low blood pressure, so I can't have too much of like hibiscus or lemon balm or those sorts of things. So it's really important to sort of do your research and take autonomy for your own health, if you know what I mean.
You've got a little free book on your website that kind of goes through each of the herbs a little bit. Does that also have some of that information
on contraindication? I think it might.
I think at the end it does.
I have a whole, so with obviously my products, I've got a whole section of like, do not take gift, blah, blah, blah. All of the contraindications and the reasons why people shouldn't take.
On your website?
On the website as well. Like it's important for people to know.
And to do your own research, like take back the power of your own health and well-being. I think like I was saying before, people just do it because they've been told to do something, or someone says, oh, hibiscus is good for that, so you just drink it. Like, do your research. Like, I think one of the big ones I always think about is pregnant women taking raspberry leaf tea. And that, have you heard?
Yeah.
So that whole concept and drinking lots of it, and I wonder how many people just do it versus actually do the research before they decide to put something in their body.
I think it's important for like pregnant women to really do a lot of research, and probably we sort of say if you're pregnant and breastfeeding, steer away from herbal teas unless you know that they're very safe.
Yeah.
And that there's
or
a
see
lot of
practitioner, I guess.
or know that empirically they have been used for many, many centuries. Like passion flower, for example. Do not drink passion flower or Passiflora incarnata tea when you're pregnant at all, because it can help. It will cause birth defects.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, lots of research showing that it causes birth defects.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's just as powerful as taking a pill. So make sure that you're aware of what's going on.
They call them gentle medicines, and they are, and our body is adaptively used to responding to plant medicines, and we're meant to have plant medicines.
Yeah.
However, we don't have the plant medicines if they are not like for us.
Yes.
Like with your thyroid issues, like you have to be really, really careful with lemon balm, for example. Those sorts of things.
Yeah. And I guess your body also a lot of the time instinctively tells you when you've had too much. You know, like you can have too much. I don't know, what's a good example? You know, there might be a certain food that makes your belly go gross and you get the runs. Like, you know what I mean? Like your body knows as well. And I think like herbs are the same. Like you're not going to eat a whole bowl of dandelion. Like it's made to be put in a salad, like here and there and scattered. And I think also the taste of foods tells your body how much you should or shouldn't have. Like if it's really bitter, probably best in small amounts. Like I think nature and your body are so in tune with that if you actually pay attention.
Yeah.
So we've got mullein, we've got lemon balm, hibiscus. What's next?
Passion flower.
Yeah,
passion flower. So whilst it's not ideal for people that are pregnant, it is fantastic for people who have like central nervous system issues where they can't get to sleep and they like can't stay asleep because overacting mind and those sorts of things. So passion flower is a nervine also, just like lemon balm.
Yeah,
and it's now scientifically proven for actually keeping you asleep for longer.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's an accumulative in your body. So you can't just have one cup of tea and then you're
fall asleep.
So it's not the same as like a medical sedative.
Yeah.
It will accumulate in your body and just help you regulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so
really interesting.
Good alternative for people who maybe are hooked on melatonin, because that's like a buzz thing at the moment.
Yeah, right. Yep.
I can't believe in the caravanning family pages the amount of people who just give their kids melatonin every night because they want them to go to bed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like it's full.
That's really interesting.
It's a done thing, like crazy.
Yeah, right.
Not just in the caravanning community, like the wider community, like mums groups on Facebook. Just giving their kids melatonin. It's crazy.
Okay. Maybe something like chamomile would be better for young children.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But,
or maybe like let them run outside for a couple of hours.
Just make them be active.
In caravanning,
Yeah,
how on earth are kids not like completely worn out when they come inside in the evening? Like that's strange.
Yeah. Or if it's that big of a problem, like go and seek help. Don't just order it off iHerb and give it to your child. I think that's another case of people assuming that, it's herbal, it's safe, I can take as much as I want maybe. And I don't know, that maybe that's just an assumption I'm making, but crazy how many people are on melatonin.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then the last herb in your range?
The Tulsi.
Tulsi,
yeah. Tulsi's amazing.
You like that one.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Personal fave.
Yeah, it's one of my personal favorites. So Tulsi, they call it the Queen of Herbs, and it's worshipped by Hindus, and it's considered to be sort of the other world. It's useful for so many different things. Like they've done research on it. It's an adaptogenic, so it helps your body respond physically to stress.
Okay.
And it's supposed to help physically, emotionally regulate you as well. So it's fantastic for things like menopause, to help regulate mood swings and regulate night sweats and regulate basically any sort of too many ups and downs in your
Yeah.
body, it will help to regulate you.
Yeah.
It's really
Lovely.
interesting.
And so in your range, do you want to explain the difference between your teas and your tinctures, and that you have two different types of tinctures too, and kind of get people across the options and what the offers kind of are and what to use when, I guess, because they're used for different things as well.
Yeah. So I've sort of moved towards tinctures now more. So teas are fantastic. Obviously, they're like a really simple, easy preparation. It's just loose leaf tea, and you just put it into your infuser. And sometimes you can make it into a little ritual, making your tea.
That's what I love about teas.
Yeah.
Like, it gives you that moment in your day or week, like however often you're going to have it, to take pause and just enjoy it. Maybe go sit in your comfy chair or outside, and it becomes like a moment of, stillness in your day. That's what I love about teas.
Just give yourself a little bit of calm.
Reflection. And I think teas are lovely for that.
It's really nice. So like the hibiscus, for example, or the tulsi, like watching them change their different colors and like infusing and going down in the water. And it's really lovely. So there's the teas. The tinctures, I've got an alcohol tincture or a glycerin tincture. Glycerin tinctures are better generally for children and people who can't drink alcohol, and that's like different religious groups and those sorts of things. And the alcohol tinctures, they're a little bit more potent because they extract more of the plant medicine. They're that little bit more potent. Obviously the glycerin tinctures are still like very effective, and the alcohol ones will actually last kind of forever. So there's no best before date with an alcohol tincture. As long as you keep them stored in a cool, dark place, they will last eons.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what would be the benefit of having a tincture over a tea? Like, is it faster acting? Is it more potent? Or is it just kind of different option?
Yeah, they're a concentrated plant extract. So I find them to be faster acting, and I think they're much more concentrated. So say, for example, I think passion flower is better as a tincture. Yeah. And actually, I think most of them are better as tinctures. Actually, a lot of people, my customers, swear by the tea because they're tea drinkers and they love the mullein tea, for example. Yeah. But now that I've introduced them to the tinctures, they will get both because the mullein tincture, and they're so portable, you can literally just take them and have them anywhere. So if you need that relief sort of immediately, it's there on hand.
And they are faster acting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, nice. And are you thinking about adding any more herbs to your range? Maybe
every couple of days I'm like, we need to
well, past a tree, I'm gonna grow that and that.
There's some really, really beautiful beneficial herbs. I did a YouTube episode with Weedy the other day.
We'll talk about that. I want to talk about that more.
I did that, and I was talking about yarrow and feverfew. And I have previously, I grow yarrow now, but I've previously grown feverfew as well. And I know how wonderful they are. So yarrow is kind of amazing for all wounds. So it's an amazing wound healer. So, and it can be taken internally and externally. Yeah. When I had COVID, I took yarrow, and it sort of helps you to break the fever and to get over your illness. Yeah. Cool. And it's amazing also for skin balms and salves and oils and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I've seen it in that a lot, like on labels of different things.
Yeah, so I'm thinking I'll probably do a yarrow range shortly. And feverfew, it doesn't taste very nice.
Full disclosure.
So I'll probably do a tincture range of the feverfew just because it's now like it's amazing for headaches and migraines. So they say eat one feverfew leaf to actually prevent as a prophylactic for migraines and headaches. I don't like the taste of it because it's extremely bitter. I'd probably turn it into a tincture and then suggest people have the tincture of feverfew. Yeah, just a feverfew tincture as a prophylactic to stop getting migraines. Yeah,
cool. Is it something you can have topically? Like, I know people use peppermint oil to help with that kind of thing too, or is it you have to ingest it?
Ingestion.
I think that's a nice way to do things. So with the yarrow, it would be in a balm form.
I am not very good at making salves. That's not my area of expertise, but I'm definitely open to partnering with someone that is in the future.
Yeah, cool.
But probably as a tincture, because if I create the tincture, then you can create your own balm. All you have to do is put the tincture in the salve or the tincture into the
Yeah,
something
true.
like
I
that,
never
yeah.
thought about that. So you could probably buy, the tincture and just make it. And could you just put the tincture on topically, or it wouldn't work?
You could, but you'd need some sort of carrier oil as
Yeah,
well. So
okay.
yeah, and maybe the glycerin. That would be actually, the glycerin might be
Like
not too
absorb
bad.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, brainstorming.
I know. Business plan, Elle, live on podcast. So with Weedy, tell us more about that, because that is so exciting what you're doing with him.
Yeah, it's cool. I love Weedy. He's so entertaining and likes to calm, and he's an awesome
such a
guy.
personality.
Yeah, he is. Been heading up to the Weedy garden, and we're going to do monthly videos just talking all things herbs and different plants and making things with herbs and
because he's kind of into that with some of his cannabis plants too. Like he's got medicinal hemp growing. Yeah. So I think that's probably right down his alley to like get involved with that too. And
yeah, we've had a really good response. So the last video we did was 5 medicinal herbs you need to know, which are the ones that I'm talking about now, that I grow and commercially and know a lot about. But we're also talking about we were talking about survival seeds, and they've got like a medicinal herb range, and we did a video about those different herbs and how they can be beneficial in people's gardens as well. So
Are you talking about how to grow them as well?
Yeah, so I was talking about some of the medicinal benefits of them, and then Weedy was sort of showing everyone how to grow them. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you're going to do that for a while with him now, or like a series kind of thing?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about it. Yeah. If we both, have the
it
time
works.
and can mesh our schedules, that'd be cool.
So cool. If people want to start researching, I guess, or learning more about teas or herbal aids, what would be the best place to kind of start, do you think?
I would say just start within yourself and think about what herb would be beneficial for me. Like, do I have an ailment? Or everyone knows, coming into winter, everyone sort of gets the coughs and colds and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Just have a think about one plant that you think might be of benefit, or one ailment that might be of benefit to you, and then try to find a plant that grows in your local area, or that you think might grow in your local area, and then see if you can grow it, and then get to know it, look at it and see how it evolves, and maybe use some leaves or some flowers, and just sort of create that relationship with that plant and see how you go.
Yeah. And is there any good resources online or books you'd recommend to kind of sink your teeth into?
There are so many. It can be really overwhelming. Like when you first start getting into herbal medicine, you're like, oh, where do I go? What do I do? And it sort of depends on your learning style as well. Like if you're a reader, obviously anything by Matthew Wood or Rosemary Gladstar.
Okay.
They're American herbalists, but they have like fantastic knowledge.
Yeah.
If you're into podcasters, there are now quite a few herb podcasts out there. Let me think. The Plant Path is one of them. He's got a lot of good scientific information.
When you're talking about wildcrafting and going out, is there any tips for like when you're literally foraging to make sure you're picking the right thing, or safety behind it, like pesticides even? And
plant ID is very important. And it can literally mean the difference between life and death, as we have learned in Victoria with mushrooms. Like that's pretty hectic.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it's really important that just because your phone says that it's something, don't 100% trust your phone. You really do need a little bit of botanical knowledge and to key it out to establish it if it is that correct plant.
I think going out in groups is a good starting point. Like if you can find a local foraging group, they often know where these things grow, and they're a wealth of information to start learning the ID. Because I think going out by yourself, if you've never done it before, is a pretty risky thing to do, I guess. And there's some things that look so similar.
And there's weed walks, like people, like foraging groups, or you can pay to go on a weed walk and they teach you about the different weeds and those sorts of, like Pat Collins does that.
Land care is a good place as well. They often have educational things. There's one in the Hunter that's amazing, and they do regular things like that where you can go out in nature and do things and ask questions. And so I think that's a good place to start too.
And if you go to courses run by naturopaths, like often these days, like the Pat Collins classes where she teaches you herbal first aid and how to make certain medicines to have in your toolbox at all the time. Lots of naturopaths around do those sorts of courses, and just dip your toe in. Just go to a couple of courses and see what you can learn, and start
Yeah.
that way.
And I think it's one of those things, you do a course and then they might recommend a book and it ends up being a rabbit hole. Like you get all these resources from this one day that you thought, oh, I'm going to go learn how to do this specific thing like first aid for herbs, and then you learn all these other things or get all these other connections or meet someone who asks you a random question and it takes you down this other path of learning. So yeah, I think keeping an open mind and doing those kinds of things is really important to self-education.
I think that's like the most powerful tool that you can have in your tool belt. Like the world ends, you know, that you've got all of these different tools in your tool belt to support yourself and your family and your community. Like
Totally. So the last question I have is, if you had one piece of permaculture advice for somebody starting out or going down this journey, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so I think of permaculture as a holistic life design system. It can be applied in so many different ways, in your business, in your home, in your what you want for the future. I think that the advice that I would give to people is to figure out what your values are and to actively work towards making those values a reality. So think about what you want your life to look like in 5-10 years and spend every single day working towards that goal.
Yeah. And to like use the principles to do that.
Yeah. So you can create your whole life around permaculture and just sort of look at the ways to systemize it and make it easier and make sure that you're aligning with your values and what you want to create in the world.
And I guess the first step is like the observation part, you know, really stepping back and observing and then figuring it out, because that's the hard part, I guess. Like, what do you want? Like when you were in that position of you know, that life crisis or turning point, you know, starting with something maybe that you enjoy doing or that you're passionate about, or to try some new things to start to design the life you want. Because I think a lot of people do get just stuck in that rut, or they kind of go through life not really knowing what they want. Like it can be hard to kind of put your finger on it. But yeah, I love that, to use permaculture to design your life and to take steps constantly towards that kind of goal.
Yeah, and if you are sort of stuck in that humdrum of like the 9 to 5 everyday sort of thing, like just that observation of like, am I happy?
Yeah.
Is this fulfilling me? Does this bring me joy?
Yeah.
Are there things that I can do to change a little bit, or tiny baby steps? It doesn't have to be a massive life crisis of like, who am I? What, like, we don't have to go through that to sort of implement different measures in our life to fix things. When I did the permaculture course with David Holmgren last year, one of the questions I sat down and asked him at the end was, what's something that you've learnt that's not from a book? What's the most important thing that you've learnt not from a book? And he said that when he was about, I think he said it was 17, and he was at a train station and he's on his way to work, and he was sitting there watching all of the people at the train station getting on the trains to go to their jobs, to all of their different little existence, and everyone was so like stressed and busy and rushed, and like no one was talking. It was just, he just said, I do not want this. This is not what I want for my life. And he just,
I think, that observation also with self-regulation and accept feedback. Like, you know, when something happens, how do you react? Why are you reacting like that? Like, is it because you're unhappy, or this happens and it makes you feel this way? So then what can you change and what can you do? And, you know, also the idea that what is it, the saying that the problem is the opportunity, or turn the solution into the problem?
Yeah.
The problem into the solution, sorry. My brain's working too fast from my mouth. Like what is something that you're not happy with, and how can you kind of flip those situations around? Because a lot of it can be, you know, if it isn't a big life crisis, a mindset thing. Like how can you change the way you're thinking, and how can you change something that might bother you or be something that you're unhappy about in your life into something more positive? Because I think it is one of those things that has a domino effect. Like you change one thing and then the next thing happens and the next thing happens, and the universe almost takes over, and, you know, it all starts happening, and it's kind of, what you appreciates, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So, Well, thank you for taking the time to chat to us today.
Yeah,
It's
you're
been
welcome.
lovely.
It's been great.
Yes. And I'll put all the links to your website and where you can get everything and your weedy videos and everything that we've talked about today in the show notes so people can jump on there nice and easy and have a look. And yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Bye.
And having us in your home. Bit of change of scenery than my caravan or tiny home.
No tradies here.
Yes. Oh, we tried to record and there was tradies in the background last time. It was not ideal. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Practical Permaculture podcast. Jump onto our Facebook group to keep the chat going and to look for any resources that we mentioned on today's show. Look in the show notes.
And if you liked the episode today, then subscribe. Please give us a review and share. And if you didn't, then that's okay. We'll sure you'll find the right podcast for you.
Bye.
Bye.